Fam got a great show today. A lot of things to talk about. I do have a little bit of a big section today, but I was like going to sleep, like excited about doing the show today because I love talking elections. And we had this hearing while we have the little timeout, the little pause with Maricopa because we have actually the stadium which they were using, the Veterans Memorial Stadium, is being used for high school graduations. So there are high school kids that finally get to walk. They didn't get to walk last year. I hope they let them walk this year. Maybe they'll do a double walk.
They're walking. They
should walk. And we talked about the whole mental obstruction that could be for these kids that, waited for years to just graduate, to go to prom, to go be able to walk, and they didn't get a chance to do it, and how that mentally affected them, right? So hopefully they get a little love, a little time, and there's a little pause in that Memorial Stadium while they're doing that, and then they will resume the audit. However, they had a hearing. They invited the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors to come. Karen Pham, the Senate, wrote a little a 3-issue thing. She pointed out 3 or 4 issues that they were experienced with the audit, and she invited the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors to come to the hearing to maybe give their perspective, give answers. Pham, would you believe they didn't show?
No, yeah. I mean, yeah.
You knew they weren't going to show.
Yeah.
Instead, they had their own press conference, and I watched most of it. I would try to highlight some things, but it was really just a bunch of garbage. It's like a bunch of babies just crying and saying, no, stop this, stop that, don't do this. They don't give reasons why. They don't give explanations why we should stop. They're just kicking, screaming, crying like a bunch of babies. And there's some Republicans involved, too, as well, in the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. And then we have the actual Senate, who is producing this hearing, talking about this hearing. And Pham, I the first clip right off the bat, I want to make this clear because I still look at that Arizona audit chat on Telegram. Donald Trump is not coming back. This audit is not about Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not trust the plan. He's going to come back and he's going to be back in office. This is not a domino to fall. However, it is kind of channeling a lot of other people in other states, like Representative Vernon Jones in Georgia this morning called for a full forensic audit, and they're having the same thing. We already had audits. No, you had a recount. We didn't have an audit. We want a forensic audit, and we want to do it so we fix our elections moving forward.
Right.
Spoke to an official that was in Arizona the other day. He goes, I got to tip my hat to a lot of these Republicans, and this person was a leftist. He goes, a lot of progressives, this shit would happen to them. They would cry, scream, and then go back to doing what they normally did. The Republicans in this particular state are like, oh, hell no. We're going to get to the bottom of this. It's not about changing the results. It's not retroactive. It's about changing the elections for the future to make sure it never happens again. And that's why this was exciting to me.
100%.
No. You agree?
I do.
All right. So let's go into, this is the first part. This little quick 20 seconds. Here's Karen Pham explaining in the beginning of a hearing what this is about, this audit.
Audit in particular, as many may or may not know, this has nothing to do with overturning the election or decertifying electors or anything else. It never has been about that. What this is about is the Senate, the Arizona Senate. We are in charge of creating, passing laws, and ensuring that elections are done properly, accurately, safely, with full election integrity.
Plain and simple. She talked about making new laws. And when we talked to Mark Fincham says, I got to see what comes out of this audit before we really concentrate on what new laws we're going to have moving forward. The Democrats don't want this done, or the establishment, I should say. I shouldn't say the Democrats, but the establishment doesn't want this done because they want to leave the elections the way it is. Even Republicans, establishment Republicans, there's a lot of talk about Mitch McConnell's race when in the ES&S counties, he got a lot of favorable numbers for him right there. ES&S, as we know, had a lot of connections to a lot of establishment Republicans back in the days. So I think they want to leave the system in play. Like people like Mitch McConnell, people like Lindsey Graham, Republicans like that, establishment candidates on the left and the right. They want to leave everything in play, Pham, so they can use it to their advantage.
Yeah, that's what these people who are, calling this audit like, oh, you're pro-Trump or, oh, you're a stop the steal person. It's like, listen, this is like both a bipartisan practice here. Like, this is both parties as the establishment manipulating who gets into power. And this is why you don't have people who represent you. This is why we can't even demand humanity from Israel. This is why we fund the healthcare of Israelis before they fund yours.
Yeah.
This is why, because you don't have fucking representation. And these idiots over here denouncing this audit are completely just engulfed in the ideology aspect of it. Because if it was a progressive, they'd be for it. And that's what it is. They don't know how to take out their ideological preference and just move forward with, okay, how can we use this to benefit future elections, including those of the progressives we want to elect, the 100 more members of the squad that we think are going to save us. It's like, why do you think Charles Booker lost his election? Like, come on, guys.
Yeah. Charles Booker should have been the one running against Mitch McConnell and could have easily beat him. Charles Booker was one of my favorites out of all these new progressives running. I really thought he was very nuanced. He had he can speak to anybody. He could go into crowds of Republicans and speak to them. He didn't have the oh my God factor. And it's unfortunate because what happened in his election, I'm pretty sure there was some fugazi shit going on.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what we have to do. Now, when Representative Vernon Jones this morning talked about he wants a full forensic audit from what he's seeing in Arizona, there's a lot of things that we have to look at, a lot of questions we need to answer. And he also said it was about fixing the integrity moving forward. What do people hit him with on his Twitter? You already had audits. You already had 2-3 audits. You already had audits. Same thing in Arizona. We saw the Daily News go in there, right?
Yep.
They already had 3 audits, but okay, so they're going to have an audit next to a carnival. Here is when CEO of Cyber Ninjas, which was the low-hanging fruit, because that's what's great about this hearing today. We have one of the other contractors there from a company called Cypher and a man named Ben Cotton, your favorite last name, which we'll talk about him too as well, who hasn't got attacked.
No relation to Tom Cotton.
No relation to Tom Cotton. But this is the CEO of Cyber Ninjas talking about audits. Johnny, it's going to go from 210 to 306, less than a minute.
Help me understand how this audit is different than some of the other audits that have been done.
Sure. So the other audits primarily focused on making sure that the version of software that was expected to be running on the machines, whether that's the tabulators or the EMS or so forth, was in fact the version that was in use. They also did, they ran some off-the-shelf software to detect any malware that's on the machines, and they ran logic and accuracy testing, which involves taking about 100 sample ballots, run it through the system, and making sure that for those sample ballots, they're counting. But at no point in any of those audits did they actually take a look at actual ballots and run those ballots through the system or do actual counting of it to validate the results. They were all focused on whether it was the right type or whether the right version of the software. Our audit is focused on specifically the results. Are the results exactly as they came through? Are they the way they were cast? And does it go all the way through the system that way?
There you go. That's good. Fam, I had to have him on record saying at no time did those audits did they actually run the actual ballots that were counted in that audit. So when you have donkeys going, oh, we already had 2-3 audits on it.
Yeah,
No.
they don't know what an audit is. And even when you tell them, they're like, you're just lying. It's like, nope, yeah, that's not a real audit. Thank you.
And that's something we talked about. We actually had the honor, I don't know what to say, or the joy of sitting down with Uncle Ronnie Lutters and Cousin Ray on their show. And Uncle Ron was actually an auditor of the state for many years. And that's the thing. He said, this is not an audit. America, you do not get audits, real audits on your elections. Plain and simple. So when they go in here to do this so they can fix future
news to a lot of
elections,
people.
yeah, they think, fam, well, didn't we already, even when I talked to Lee Camp, didn't they already have 2 audits? I'm like, no, Lee, they didn't have 2 audits. No. People just say it. The mainstream media says it, and they keep echoing it and repeating it.
And what irks me is that the progressive movement is so critical on what the mainstream media says, but when it comes to elections, they buy that. They buy that. When it comes to COVID, they buy that. So it's like, why do you make mental gymnastics when it comes to things? Is it the weight of the fact that a lot of right wingers are the ones calling it out? And it's like conspiracy theories were pushed like by leftists supposedly a long time ago, not even that long ago, before 9/11. Conspiracy theories were led by the left. It was like what the commies did. Ooh, a bunch of commie conspiracy theories. Suddenly, it's the right wingers that are the conspiracy theorists, and it's like, doesn't that make you think how they manipulate all of this information just to divide us?
Yeah. I think that, sometimes I think this is all a big act to keep us separated. And that's why they're showing you some of the behind the curtain look at elections and stuff. We never have audits. We should get audits. Why not check the homework? It should be mandatory. Like we said, this particular audit should be mandatory for every single election in every single county, period, point blank, on TV, cameras, the whole 9 yards. Now, let's talk about some of the problems really quick, because there's 4 problems that were pointed out. Number 1, this is Ken Bennett talking about problem number 1, the lack of chain of custody. We've said this before. Now you got Katie Hobbs and all these other people. We're concerned about the chain of custody now or whatnot all of a sudden.
Sure.
Okay, so this is 541 to 854, Johnny. This is Ken Bennett talking about the lack of chain of custody. And I want you to pay attention to what's said, because this is a serious, serious problem.
On the 22nd, we received 46 pallets of the ballots. We did have some minor issues that we worked through together on that day. We had, for example, 26 boxes that were mismarked on the manifests, but we corrected those as we ran into them. Mr. Jarrett and I personally inspected all 46 pallets and all 1,681 boxes. We found the 26 mismarked ballots and corrected those on the manifest. We found 8 boxes that were on the pallets but not listed on manifests. 1 on pallet 12, 4 on pallet 22, 2 on 38, and 1 on 41. Just to kind of give you the level of detail that he and I were kind of working through on that day. We did find a couple of boxes that were listed on the manifests but not on the pallet. That was on pallet 40, and we determined that they had been combined with 2 of the other boxes that were listed on the pallet. And then we found 3 boxes listed as being on pallet 43, but they were actually on pallet 45. So we worked through all of those issues. Mr. Jarrett was very professional, and the other county staff that were with him, and we worked through all those issues. I think that's. As I've read your letter, Madam President, I think perhaps the county misinterpreted the chain of custody question that we were asking, which I've been asking for weeks myself, and that is the chain of custody between the election in November and when the ballots were delivered to us on the 21st and 22nd of April. The link in that chain that occurred on those 2 days in April that delivered the ballots to me as your representative and to the Coliseum, that link is very secure, and we understand it correctly. We both agreed, as I said, on 1,681 boxes of ballots on 46 pallets, and but the question we had that we still haven't received as far as chain of custody is the documentation of the chain of custody between when the ballots or boxes in the ballots, boxes with ballots in them, started to be filed away in their warehouse between the election and April 22nd is kind of the questions that we still haven't seen any chain of custody documentation. There was a pretty famous tweet with a picture of 8 or 10 pallets that seemed to be loaded in the back of a truck that was tweeted out shortly after I think the court decided that your subpoenas were legitimate. And it seemed to be tweeted out by the chairman of the Board of Supervisors saying that we have these ballots ready to deliver.
851.
We would have liked to and still would like to see the chain of custody documents between November and April to see if that type of an event is on those chain of custody documents. But it's the chain of custody between November and April that we haven't received.
Just to that point, Madam.
So this is very big, fam. The manifest, the chain of custody, everything has to be documented, right? And you heard Katie Hobbs say, well, we're worried about the chain of custody. That's why the Department of Defense has to come in, or the DHS Justice Department has to come in and take everything because they're breaking the chain of custody, whatnot. But that's what we've been seeing since the get-go, and they've been pointing this out. Now, I brought this up in Title 16 in the Arizona laws, whatnot, because it's been referred to. There's so much information in this hearing, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a chance to go back, I had to try to figure out what to put in and what I couldn't put in. But this is coming from Title 16, which was pretty much their rules and their laws when it comes to Arizona. And I'm going to read it. And this is Section 16608, Delivery of Ballots Electronic Voting System. Johnny, if we can put this up real quick. After the close of the polls and after the compliance with Section 1602, the members of the election board shall prepare a report in duplicate of number of voters who have voted and is indicated in the poll list, and place this report in the ballot box or metal container in which the voter ballots have been placed, which thereupon shall be sealed with a number sealed and delivered promptly to 2 members of the election board of different political parties to the central counting place or other receiving stations designated by the Board of Supervisors or officer in charge of election, which shall not be more than 50 miles from the polling place from which the ballots are delivered. This person in charge of receiving ballots shall give the numbered receipt, acknowledging receipt of such ballots in the person in charge who delivers such ballots. It's got to be airtight, fam. The receipts need to match. Everything has to be on point. And it wasn't. It was all over the place. Here's Ken Bennett once again talking about the duplicate process, because this is important, fam. If a ballot is soiled or coffee stained or wrinkled and can't go through the machine, they have to make a duplicate ballot. But to do that duplicate ballot, they have to make sure those 2 ballots are together for the audit process. Then they have a security code number on it. That security code has to be airtight. None of this is happening, fam, and they show this as they go along. Here is Ken Bennett once again. This is 27:31 to 28:50, just a minute and 20 seconds of him talking about the duplicate process and how it was out of whack.
Is there, if Maricopa County was willing to help us, is there any chance that they would have something that would provide us that information? I mean, I don't understand how it is. We know whether there's the proper number of duplicate ballots. If there's not enough, too many, there's got to be some way. Certainly, the board of supervisors must have some way of verifying that. What would that be that we could ask them for if they would be willing to?
Well, we will. I will send a question over to that effect to Maricopa County. On several occasions, Maricopa County has made it clear to me, verbally and by email, that they will not interact directly with the auditors, which I feel is very unfortunate, that the auditors can't pose these questions directly to the county. So as the liaison, I will understand and encapsulate these in a question, and I'll send them over to the county probably in the next few days as we begin to resume the counting. But this is one of the questions related to duplicate ballots that we just discovered a few days ago, and we're struggling as to how we're going to be able to match the originals to the duplicates if the originals don't have the same serial number as required by 16621 as the duplicate ballot does.
Right there. So, and I put this down right here. This is 16621. You look at the last sentence of it right here. All duplicate ballots created pursuant to the subsection shall be clearly labeled duplicate and shall bear a serial number that shall be recorded on the damaged or defective ballot. Now, if you don't have this in order, fam, and you don't have this going on, if you don't have the proper procedures, you can just flood a bunch of duplicate ballots that aren't marked properly. And that's the thing they're talking about. And the next picture, I have Doug Logan over here just showing, like, look at these sheets. They're so out of whack. Nothing. These are the receipts for the boxes, right? They're saying they're not matching. They're not having the numbers. The duplicates aren't matching. The chain of custody that the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors tried to, I don't want to say upheld because they didn't hold it, is out of whack. The chain of custody is crazy right now. And what did I tell you before, fam? They're gonna plead negligence, ignorance, because you can't go to jail for fraud for negligence. Oh my God, my bad. We screwed up. You know, it was such a crazy election this time. We didn't have all our ducks in order. We'll get it right next time. You can't send anybody to jail for that. And that's what they're gonna hide behind. But once again, Arizona law, moving forward, they're putting this all out in the open. So look, we have justification to show you that this manifest and these receipts and these duplicate ballots have to be marked right. If they're not marked right, we're throwing them out next time. You're not getting them through. You know what I'm saying? Or fire people, hire people. You know what I'm saying? In Georgia, there is a lot of lawsuits that are coming out. They didn't have the same process. This is going to save them from when they do have lawsuits, when their election integrity bill comes out, they're going to already have the answers, and the people in the public are going to be like, oh, no, they have the right to do this. They showed on the last election they didn't have the proper duplicate ballot, a chain of custody in order, and we're not going to let that happen again because we don't know if they're legit votes or not. You need the old ballot with the new ballot, and they've left them in a position where they can't do that. A few other things pointed out by Ken Bennett and the auditors in conclusion to the chain of custody. Proper tape and seals were not on boxes. Johnny can tell you about that thing. You know, when we saw the tape over in California and stuff like that, we're like, this is a piece of Scotch tape. You're supposed to have the seal tape that if you break it, somebody knows. They didn't have that. They also showed an example of a chain of custody that should be upheld by the way the audit is going, and how 8 people inside that audit building right now, fam, will have significance in marking down and signing as they're moving these ballots. So the chain of custody within the audit is great, but the chain of custody for the election was shite.
Right.
Yeah.
By comparison, yeah.
By comparison. Now here's the second problem. We're going to talk about the second problem. This is about the routers. We mentioned this before. This is 1155 to 1443. And this is pretty cool right now because you're going to hear one of the other contractors. His name is Ben Cotton from Cipher. He's going to talk about that because this is his areas of expertise when it comes to a lot of the programming, the routers, looking at the logs. That's what this guy does. But take a look at his answer for what happens with the routers.
About equipment a second. You relayed in the concerns that you had that I relayed to Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, there were questions about the routers that we were supposed to, from our subpoena, we were going to get things. You had mentioned to me before I did this letter of a concern that we were supposed to get some equipment and we didn't get it. Could you explain that to us, please?
A little over a week before the machines were to be delivered, I was having questions with Mr. LaRue, the Assistant County Attorney, as to how they were going to handle the routers that were part of the subpoenas and the other hubs and related internet connectivity equipment, if that's a term. I'm not sure it is, but I'll call it that. And about a week before the machines were to be delivered, I called Mr. LaRue and offered that we could have the contractor that would be looking at the routers actually come to McTech and look at the routers while they were still installed and in place in McTech so that nothing had to be removed or disturbed. He called me back the next day and said that they had removed all of the equipment and that they had replaced it at great expense to the county, and that all of that would be on a pallet delivered with the rest of the equipment on what turned out to be April 21st. When the 21st arrived, and I couldn't see or identify that pallet of internet equipment or routers or hubs or whatever, I asked him where they were, and he said that they had decided not to do it that way, that they were still back in the building, and that they would provide us virtual access was the term that he used. I believe these two gentlemen were standing nearby me when that happened. And so we were told that instead of receiving that equipment, we would receive virtual access. That continued to be their position for more than 2 weeks. And when we finally pushed on when are we going to get virtual access, then they eventually came back and said that the routers in McTech are somehow connected to the Sheriff's Department and other county departments, and that if they gave them to us or even gave us virtual access, that Social Security numbers would be at risk and county health records, and so they have now refused to give us even virtual access.
So, Madam President, if I may.
Fam, and I got the next picture up. Johnny, you can put it up as we're talking about. Maricopa County Elections Department also puts up the reason why the routers are the blueprints to the county. Providing that information puts lives at risk. Social Security numbers are out there. Law enforcement will be at risk. But they did the whole two-step. Well, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, we'll give you this, we'll give you that.
And they didn't.
Stall techniques, and then they didn't. So now we have Ben Cotton entering, one of the contractors from a company called Cipher. And watch what Ben Cotton says about their bullshit lies. This is 1702 to 1953. Watch what he says about their bullshit lies about what the routers actually contain and how they work.
Kind of the function of a router in layman's terms. So if you think of a packet of data as an envelope in the U.S. postal system, the router is essentially the carrier that delivers that envelope to the right mailbox. Okay, you've got a originating address, you've got a destination address. The data is contained in a packet. And the router typically does not record any of that information inside of the packet. It simply delivers that envelope to the proper mailbox that it's destined for. My confusion here with the stance that the county is taking is that, well, it's twofold. So the first point of concern / confusion is the assertion that PII data and Maricopa County resident data would be compromised by examining the router. That data should not exist on that router, period. So to state that it could be compromised would be an inaccurate statement or an inaccurate portrayal of what the data is on the router. The second piece on this that is concerning to me is that there have been public reports by ProVNV, there have been statements by the county saying that these election systems don't actually touch the internet. Therefore, the extension of that would be that they do not touch the county network because that's exposed to the internet. And to say that the data corresponding to these networks would somehow compromise law enforcement activity or PII data seems incongruous to the previous statements. Okay, and if you take the letter, which states these compromises would occur at face value, then de facto that means that the election data had to be exposed to the internet, which I don't know if it's the case or not. But that's certainly something that we need to explore given the inconsistencies in these public statements and reports that they have presented. The actual fact is that after they shut down the provisioning of us with this data, there have been no other offers for us to get access to the data, to review the data, or otherwise obtain that data.
There you go. So they're playing the do-si-do with the routers right now. Number one, they're lying about what the routers will really have as far as data, as far as social security numbers and blueprints to the county. Number two, they're giving, once again, the two-step again. We'll give it to you, we won't give it to you. And there's been no offer to say, hey, listen, we'll give you the router information, we'll give you the Splunk logs, which will show, because they know damn well one of the biggest claims Maricopa County's made is that these tabulation machines haven't been hooked up to the internet. Well, show us. Show us the routers. Plain and simple, they won't do it. Really quickly, just pointing out Ben Cotton, because this guy has flown under the radar. He's the CEO of this company called Cipher. I just put up his LinkedIn page right over there if you wanted to see it, or his cipher.com. There he is. You can look down below on the left, Johnny. It has like his information of his jobs, of his history. He started off, he was a warrant officer, and you can see he went to the University of Maryland. So he's worked in cybersecurity for quite some time. The guy's also testified at Congress several times before. He's no lightweight whatsoever. The company Cipher.com is a forensic audit analyst company of sorts that looks at all your cybersecurity needs as far as who's going in and who's going out, and they can figure everything out. And Ben Cotton right now, just really quick, I just put here, there's 1 minute right there. There's this Cipher, his strengthens your cyber resilience. He's got a cool little video there if you want to go there and check it out. But this guy's flown under the radar because he's one of the contractors, and instead they went for the low-hanging fruit and Doug Logan because Cyber Ninja sounds way more bullshit.
Right.
But Ben Cotton, really quick, they just asked him really quick, and this is him just saying, yeah, I've testified for Congress, I've done this, this is all my work before, I'm legit. 1953.
If I may, Mr. Cotton, have you...
just 1 minute, Johnny.
What kind of experience do you have accessing confidential or top secret data?
So we routinely work for some of the largest companies in the world with incident response breaches, with forensics matters, and we are entrusted with that data, and we have never had an exposure, a leak, or any type of data being emitted from our custody. I also have personal experience at the highest levels of government supporting agencies in which security clearances are required.
So, Madam President, Mr. Cotton, are you confident that you could look at the routers without risking any security concerns or breaches to the county?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Watch for the smear campaign on this guy, fam. They're going to go out there. Listen, I get the routers. Nothing's going to be leaked. Nothing will get out. The county's full of shite. Give us the routers. Can we see what's going on? So now they're saying that they haven't been given the routers, and if they are given the routers, there will be no security breach. In his company, in his personal life, whatever the case may be, anytime he's done work, there has not been a security breach. He's very confident he can get that information out so we can see what's what. But you know, fam, they're not going to let us see this because we know, and we've heard this. This has been something we've been going through. Even Johnny caught him in New Hampshire. They're connected to the internet. Yeah. Don't give me that fucking malarkey. Here is the third problem real quick. We're going to spend a little bit of time on this. This is the secondary passwords not given to the audit team. And the thing about it is, fam, is that what they were giving was poll worker access. They're not giving administrative or technical access so they can go in and look at everything. Here's a quick clip, 3619 to 3901, about the secondary passwords that they are not given.
Mr. Cotton, I want to, we asked you about your qualifications earlier, but I just had a couple of extra questions on your professional background I want to ask because I thought this was important for your qualifications. Have you been admitted as an expert witness in legal proceedings with respect to your computer forensics?
I have.
Have you testified before the U.S. Congress with respect to the Office of Personal Management breach of 2015?
I have. I believe it was on 3 separate occasions.
I want to go to the passwords. And I want to ask you some questions about that. What level of passwords and access did the county provide you to the Dominion tabulators?
So the county initially provided us a security key and poll worker access to the systems. Now with the poll level access, you can open a tabulator, you can open an election, and you can close an election. The challenge there is that what my purview is to actually determine the configuration of that tabulator. We know, for example, that there are 2, they call...
And what do you need to get the...
That requires a separate access at either the administrator or the technician level. Okay. Yeah. And we know, for example, that there are 2 RJ45 network connectors on these tabulators. We don't know what those configurations are. We don't know if there is a card internal to the system that might be a Verizon wireless card. We know those tabulators of that model certainly have that capability, but we don't know what the configuration is for the Maricopa County tabulators.
Okay. Who controls, possesses, or has access?
That's okay. We can stop that there. All right, so there it is, fam. They don't have access. What the county gave over was poll worker access, which is access me and you would get if we volunteered to go open up a poll, open up an election, close an election. They don't have administrative rights. They don't have technical administrative rights. So they can't get in and see what's going on. And he even said, we don't know what's in there. It could be a freaking Verizon wireless card that's sitting in there. We need to get access in there to make sure to see what's going on. So those are 3 problems. They're not been given to them. They're still, that's why this is taking so long. And then 4th, the deleted files. Here's a little bit thing on this. I'm only going to go a minute and about a half on this really quick because it appears that even though they see there was a bunch of deleted files, the files were deleted before all the machinery and everything was given over to them. It seems like Mr. Ben Cotton was able to go through that roadblock. I don't know if this is really about setting a narrative, if what they've deleted was necessary, was good, or something they can find, but it's still out there and he talks about it.
And striped across both drives as well. Obviously, if I don't turn on a system, I don't have access to the RAID parameters, and the county did not provide those to us. So I had to do a discovery process to determine what that RAID configuration was. Part of that process is a scan across those drives to detect partitions of data and to also detect what we call a master file table. So a master file table, very simply put, is a record of all of the directories and the files that are contained in that partition, and a pointing and a pointer to where that data resides on the hard drive. In the course of performing that MFT discovery, I discovered a MFT that clearly indicated that the database directory was deleted from that server. So all of this, however, may be a moot point because subsequently I've been able to recover all of those deleted files and I have access to that data.
So,
He just says one more thing.
with that being said, do you still need to get that database from the county, or did that rebuilding or recovery that you did, does that have the information you currently need for that database?
I have the information I need from the recovery efforts of the data.
There you go.
Okay. Well, that's some.
So there he goes, and he says, "Oh, that's some good news. All right, so we got through a roadblock. They deleted a bunch of files, but he was able to find them, and he was able to go back and see what was in those files. So I don't know if he's trying to make the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors sweat what's in those files, or it was just maybe a bunch of malarkey. We don't know until that information comes out.
But
However,
he knows what's in them.
He knows what's in them. But we also see the fact that they are deleting files, and they shouldn't be doing that too as well.
Right
and that's
before they
something-
handed it off.
Right before they handed off that equipment. Just finally, they also talked briefly about the blue pens that were there. In other words, everything that the mainstream media put out there, they kind of debunked. They talked briefly, oh, these blue pens, we caught it really in the beginning. We removed these blue pens so nobody can mark any ballots. They talked about ballot security during the audit and how they're constantly the 8 people walking back, signing off, that they know exactly what they're counting, exactly what ballot. There are people watching other people. They talked about the cameras on the observers and the audit teams, that they're everywhere. They're above the tables. They're all over the place. You can't sneeze without somebody seeing it. You can't pick your nose because you will be on camera. And they also asked Doug Logan, about a timeline. And he said because of the hurdles and now everything they have in place, the extra volunteers they coming in, they should be done by the end of June. And I just want to play this last statement right now from Doug Logan, because Doug Logan really threw out a biscuit here. You know, we asked John Brakey about this guy, and he's a solid guy. He's been doing a lot of this work. He looked at the machines in Atrium County before Dominion Machines. That's why they brought him over here, along with Ben Cotton, a great team. It really are. But listen to what Doug Logan says here, fam. This is so important because he lets everybody know out there something important that they need to know about our elections, and the main issue that we feel sometimes needs to be fixed.
Of times that this password that we need for the tabulators somehow gives access to the source code. It does not give access to the source code. Source code is what the programmer writes, which gets turned into a program, and then that program is what is actually deployed in any given system. There's some miscommunication or misunderstanding to think that this password would give access to any source code, and so hopefully that can help alleviate some concerns and get what we need in order to finish this audit.
There you go.
Okay, that was helpful.
Fam, mentions the source code. Very important. Pretty much just saying that they're not allowed to look at it. They're not going to get it right now. It's just the source code is the main elephant in the room. No matter what they go through over here, if we have proprietary software and a source code that we can't look at, that source code can tell those machines to count them any way they want, and we wouldn't know. Even if, I don't even know what Mark Fincham said it being an escrow, if that would work. Who knows? We have to get through this problem of having proprietary software and a source code that is not an open source code, because then it can manipulate elections all the time. I'm very and that was something that wasn't asked of Doug Logan. That was at the end. He said, I want to clear something up right now. We ain't getting the source code. We're not going to know what's what. We will not know. That source code can be manipulated, put in any machine, and that's what the machines are going to do, what the source code told it to do. So I'm very glad that Doug Logan did mention that on his own terms towards the end of this hearing. This very important, informative hearing about getting our elections straight moving forward. Finally, I just want to show
our friends
who are still crying. They're shitting their pants. Here's Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. The lone Democrat, Stephen Gallardass, couldn't go to the hearing, but he had time to go on MSDNC and cry and gaslight the people and speak for the other Republicans. And watch how the mainstream media just fucking sucks. This is how you know they're propaganda.
Compare this coverage to that.
Yeah.
County Board of Supervisors in Arizona. He is the lone Democrat on a 5-member board there that has now come to the end of its patience, that is now angrily demanding that the Republicans in the state Senate that have been conducting this election fraud fantasy audit of Arizona's presidential election results, they are demanding that they call it off once and for all before any more damage is done. Mr. Gallardo, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's a real pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
I feel like you have been a loud voice against this from the very beginning, talking about the danger of this, the ridiculousness of this, the real damage that could be done by this and how it would be used in those ways you just described. What feels like is new is in the last few days, so many Republicans in Arizona, including fellow Republicans on the board with you in Maricopa County, are now basically saying, yeah, we're with you. We're with Supervisor Gallardo on this. This has to end. This is dangerous. We need to call an end. We need to call a stop to this. It's gone too far. It's doing too much damage. What sort of turned it on for Republicans? What changed their minds and made them see it the way they now seem to?
Enough is enough. The fact is that we received a letter from the Arizona State Senate accusing us of committing crimes here in the state of Arizona and in Maricopa County. They have called for us to be arrested. Enough is enough. I believe that many of the Republicans there in Maricopa County have said this is enough. We're not going to continue to stand on the sidelines and be quiet. We're going to speak out. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing members not only on my board, but county-wide elected Republican officials. You're seeing Senate Republicans that are now stepping up and saying enough is enough. The fact is that they have done more damage to our democracy, the credibility of our election system over the last 6 months than ever before. And it's time for elected officials to stand up and say enough is enough, knock it off, stop this ridiculous sham audit. And for those that want to sit on the sidelines, our governor, Governor Ducey, wants to sit quietly on the sidelines, doesn't want to upset Trump and the Trump loyalists. Enough is enough. He needs to step up. The Attorney General, who wants to run for governor, he needs to step up. No more standing on the sideline. Anyone who is wanting to run for office in 2022 needs to pick a side. Are you on the side of conspiracy theorists and con artists, or are you on the side of democracy, the Constitution, and the rule of law? You have to pick a side. No more standing quiet on the sidelines. If you want to run for public office, you need to let the voters of the state of Arizona and Maricopa County know exactly which side you are on. That is question number one in the 2022 election. We need to stop this ridiculous sham audit. We need to restore our confidence in our democracy. And the only way we can do that is by telling the voters the truth. Our election was safe, secure, and accurate.
Bam.
If our election was so secure, safe, and accurate, why are you so against an audit? Why are you maligning an audit? And also, we told you that election interference, election fraud, election malfeasance is a bipartisan practice. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. What matters is what gang you belong to and who you want to win. It's always been like this. So them saying, oh, even Republicans are on board. We've been telling you that Republicans are on board with Democrats. We've been telling you this for fucking years now. This happens all the time. This is nothing new. They're acting like, oh my God, if even Republicans are on board, then that means this is a threat to our democracy. This is our threat to our democracy. Everything they don't want you to find out, they always say it's a threat to your democracy. Yeah. What's a threat to our democracy? First of all, we don't have a democracy. Second of all, it's having mistrust in a system where people think that people actually smuggled bamboo paper from China. If people believe that, that's your fault, because you've allowed it. You've allowed this distrust in the system. Right? And that's good. It's good that people distrust the system because the system has screwed them. But if you want to get that system back, fucking be transparent. And they're not being transparent at all.
The sham audit. He had no time to show up to Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. They were invited to that hearing with Karen Pham to give answers. Here, come bring your side of the story. We'll talk about what's going on. Let's get our election straight. And let me tell you something. Arizona and Karen Pham, they've been a lot more...
Fan, right?
Fan.
It sounds like you're saying Karen Pham.
Karen Pham. Like the blowing of a fan. But she's been very upfront about this. This is not about going back and switching the results of the election. This is about how we create laws moving forward to make sure that our elections are fair, transparent, publicly trackable, and publicly verified. Like, you have to track every ounce of this to say, okay, this is fair. And the fact that they're shitting their pants, they're screaming, enough is enough, pick a side. My name is Stephen Hard-ass, please get over here, and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Please don't ever do that.
I mean,
That's scary.
pick a side.
No,
I mean, enough is enough. You saw how high his voice got. It's ridiculous. They're
chills.
shitting their pants. And you know what? This is a domino effect as far as other states getting their election process right. This is something the Democrats, the progressives should have been on, right? You know what I'm saying? Like we said, we heard somebody who said to us, progressives, this happens to us, they'll kick and scream, and then they'll go back to doing what they normally do. The Republicans in the state in Arizona said, you ain't going to do this shit to us ever again. We're fixing our elections, and that's what they're doing. They're fixing. They're getting your ass kicked by a bunch of Trumpers when it comes to election integrity. And I'll tell you this much: a lot more progressives have suffered at the reign of our fucking election systems than any conservatives have. So many grassroots progressives have suffered at the reign of our election systems than any conservative. We know about. We've seen this all around. If you think Nancy Pelosi gets all those votes legitimately, then you're sniffing some serious glue, and I want some. Let me read some of these Super Rays. Anything else, Johnny? You got anything to say on the whole thing? Thank you so much. I worked hard on it last night. I love you guys, and I love the fact that we talk about election integrity. We may need to go out to New Hampshire. Shit's going down over there.